On October 2nd, 2018, Jamal Khashoggi walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to collect documents for his wedding. His fiancée waited outside. Hours passed. He never came back out. Within days, the world was staring at one of the most consequential political killings of the modern era. A journalist enters a diplomatic building in broad daylight and then seems to disappear into the machinery of state power. At first, Saudi Arabia said he had left the building. Then the story changed. Then it changed again. What followed was not just a murder investigation. It was a battle over truth, diplomacy, evidence, and impunity. And even now, years later, some of the most important questions remain unanswered. This is the story of what happened to Jamal Khashoggi in Istanbul, what investigators concluded, what remains disputed, and why this case still matters far beyond Turkey, Saudi Arabia, or a single consulate door.
Herkese görevinde başarılar diliyorum.
For me, as a Saudi Arabian citizen,
Jamal Khashoggi was not an unknown dissident on the margins. He was a prominent Saudi journalist, a former editor, a man who knew the system from the inside, and by 2017 he had gone into self-imposed exile in the United States, where he began writing for the Washington Post. In that role, he became one of the best-known Saudi critics of the kingdom's crackdown on dissent. His killing shocked the public for three reasons. First, because of where it happened. Inside a consulate, a place ordinary people associate with paperwork, passports, visas, and official routine. Second, because of who he was, a journalist whose writing had become globally visible. And third, because the case immediately raised a question bigger than the killing itself. If a state can reach across borders and silence a critic inside its own diplomatic mission, what does that mean for every dissident, exile, and journalist living abroad? That is why this case did not stay a local crime story. It became a test of whether political power could overpower law, whether international outrage could produce accountability, and whether the truth could survive when the scene of the crime was protected by diplomacy and shadowed by geopolitical interests. To understand the power of this story, you have to understand Jamal Khashoggi himself. He was not anti-Saudi in any simple sense. He was Saudi. He had worked within the media establishment. He had connections, history, stature. But by the time Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman consolidated power, Khashoggi had become a vocal critic of the kingdom's repression of writers, activists, and dissenting voices. His writing was not the rhetoric of an outsider trying to burn the system down. In many ways, it was more threatening than that. It was the voice of someone who knew the country, knew its elite, and still chose to speak publicly. Then there was Hatice Cengiz, Khashoggi's Turkish fiancée. On the day he entered the consulate, she waited outside for him. Her role in this story matters because the first alarm did not come from an intelligence service or a breaking newsroom. It came from the woman who stood outside a building, kept waiting, and realized something was terribly wrong. And above them, looming over the entire case, was Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Here, precision matters.
Did you order the murder of Jamal Khashoggi?
بلا شك لا.
Absolutely not. This was a heinous crime. But I take full responsibility as a leader in Saudi Arabia, especially since it was committed by individuals working for the Saudi government.
What does that mean?
Saudi Arabia has consistently denied that the Crown Prince ordered the killing or knew of it in advance. But the US intelligence community later assessed that he approved an operation in Istanbul to capture or kill Khashoggi, and the UN rapporteur said there was credible evidence warranting further investigation of high-level Saudi officials, including the Crown Prince. Those are not identical conclusions, and neither is a criminal conviction. But they are central to why this case exploded far beyond the murder itself. The story did not begin on October 2nd. Days earlier, on September 28, 2018, Khashoggi had gone to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul seeking documents related to his upcoming marriage. He was told to come back. That return appointment matters because it meant his second visit was scheduled, expected, and predictable. According to the account later laid out by Turkish authorities, that gave planners time. By the time October 2nd arrived, Khashoggi was walking into what should have been a routine, bureaucratic errand. Instead, according to Turkish authorities and later international assessments, a Saudi team had already arrived in Istanbul. Turkish officials said 15 Saudis came into the city in multiple groups, some on private jets, before converging on the consulate. Later, the US intelligence assessment said the team included officials associated with the Crown Prince's inner apparatus, including members of his elite protective detail. That detail changes the emotional temperature of the story. This was not a chaotic street crime. The public record points toward preparation, logistics, access, and coordination. Whether the original plan was kidnapping or murder became one of the points Saudi Arabia tried to frame in its defense. But independent investigators would later conclude that, at minimum, the operation was deliberate and state-linked. On October 2nd, Khashoggi entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in the early afternoon. Surveillance footage captured him going in. No public footage ever showed him coming back out. Hatice Cengiz waited outside for hours, then raised the alarm. That basic outline has never really changed. What changed was the story Saudi Arabia told about what happened after he crossed that threshold. And here is what made the case so immediately chilling. Turkish investigators could not simply force their way in. Consular premises are inviolable under diplomatic rules. They are not sovereign territory, but they are protected in a way that restricts the host state's immediate access. In practical terms, that meant precious time. Time to clean, coordinate, and shape a story. The United Nations report later concluded that Turkish investigators only got delayed and limited access, and that there was credible evidence the crime scenes had been thoroughly cleaned. That delay became one of the defining features of the entire case. Because from the outside, the world watched a diplomatic building turn into a sealed chamber of uncertainty. A man had entered. A man had not exited. And the first official answer the world got was simple. He left. According to the official statement, the answer seemed simple. Less than 2 hours after Khashoggi entered the consulate, CCTV appeared to capture him leaving through the back gate. Case closed. Or so it seemed. But was the man in that footage really Jamal Khashoggi? In the next episode, we break down the footage, the timeline, and the details Saudi Arabia put forward, step by step, to uncover what may have happened inside the consulate that day.